It's 6 p.m. and we'll call to order the Southbound Water and Sewer Authority Board of Directors meeting for May 14th, 2024. I'd like to welcome everyone here tonight on this rainy Tuesday night. Thank you all for coming out. And now we'll go to our roll call, Madam Secretary.
All right, thank you, sir. Commissioner Gooch.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Kaczynski.
Present.
Commissioner Way.
Present.
Councilperson Daniels.
Present.
Mayor Jordan. Commissioner McLeod.
Present.
Commissioner Karen.
Present.
All are accounted for.
Okay, thank you. And now, Councilperson Vicki Daniels will lead us in prayer.
Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we gather here today with grateful hearts, acknowledging your presence among us. We seek your guidance and wisdom as we embark on this important endeavor. Grant us clarity of thought, discernment, and creativity in our discussions. May our decisions be aligned with your will and bring forth positive outcomes for all involved. Bless this meeting with productivity, unity, and a spirit of cooperation. We commit this time and all its proceedings into your hands, trusting that you will lead us on the path of success. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. And Commissioner Robert Way will lead us in our Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Now, are there any adjustments to the meeting agenda? If there are no adjustments to the meeting agenda, we'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda. Motion. Have a motion to approve. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Have a second. Is there any discussion on the motion? No discussion, then we'll go to the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed likewise. Ayes have it, motion carries. Review of the minutes from the April 9th, 2024 board meeting. I trust everyone's had a chance to read over the minutes and see if everything's in order.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve the minutes. Commissioner Way.
Second.
Second by Mayor Pro Tem Kaczynski. Any discussion on the motion? No discussion. We'll go to the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed likewise. Ayes have it. Motion carries. And now that brings us to our public comments. And we have a couple of people signed up for public comments. I just want to remind you this is not a question and answer session. This is your opportunity to speak. If you have questions and you want them answered, stick around to the end of the meeting and we'll be glad to entertain any questions you have and do our best to answer those questions. Now, we have two signed up. The first one that signed up was Ms. Anna Rogers. Would you please come forward? And if you will, state your name and address for the record, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Miss Anna Rogers, and I live at 314 8th Street here in Butler.
Thank you. Yes.
Okay. My concern today is that someone come out to my house about a month ago saying that they're going to put in a sewage line. So tonight I come to see if I get some more information on what's going on because it said for Granville County. And I want to know, putting this line through my property, I don't have a big issue with it, but what I want to know is that how are you going to treat this line, putting this line through my property? Will it affect resale if I want to, resell my home? How is it going to affect the community, period? So I was talking to some young men tonight as I came in, and they was, giving me some advice on what they think may be going on but most of the people that I'm talking to are out of Raleigh. So I did talk to Mr. Joyner earlier, and he had print up my property. But as you told me earlier today before the meeting started, that you will be sending someone out to my home that they can, speak with me and give me more information on about what's going on. So that was my concern, because everybody's kind of up in the air about it. And I didn't see nobody bagging me up today. See, that's how people do. They put you out there, but they don't bag you up. But anyway, I'm here for myself. So if you can, and if you will send someone out to talk with me, I truly will appreciate it. Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Chet Thompson, if you will, state your name and address for the record, please.
Good evening. My name is Chet Thompson. I live at 601 12th Street in Butler, North Carolina. I also operate a plumbing service and air conditioning service at the same address in this town. I've lived here my whole life. We'll have a little show and tell. And I'm sorry, this is going to take more than 3 minutes, y'all. But you got to see this. You got to.
We only have 3 minutes.
Well, Mr. Gooch, I'd appreciate it if you give me a little leeway here, because this is important. It's very important. And it should be important to anyone who lives in Butler. This is called an anode rod. It goes in every hot water heater that is put in anywhere. They have to have it. It is aluminum wrapped around a steel rod. Every single water heater, hot water heater, has this, unless it's tankless. So if you have a tank water heater, this sits right in the middle of your water heater. This was taken out of Lynn Bailey's house on 12th Street this past Saturday. It is 5 months old. 5 months. Do you see? And this is awful. And the reason that I have a concern is twofold. Number one, the quality of the water. Okay? If the SGWASA water will do this to aluminum and steel, what's it doing to my body? This has only been happening since September. I've talked to 3 other plumbers in this town, and they've all had the same issue. The reason that this is an issue is because whatever's in the water since September, is causing this to happen. It causes oxidation inside of the water tank, okay? And what that does is creates bubbles in the water tank. So when you turn on your hot water, guess what you get? Who wants to take a shower in that? Nobody. It affects me as a businessman because I have to come back after I've installed a $2,000 water heater, and I have to figure out, why is this happening? Well, I'm sorry that you're upset with me, but let me get to the bottom of this. Now, I've been doing plumbing for 40 years, and I've never seen this. I've seen it in ones that are 20 years old, but not in a 5-month-old water heater. So I need someone from SGWASA who's chemist, who handles this kind of thing, to tell me, what are you putting in the water now that's causing that? I gotta know. My livelihood depends on it. Not to mention the customers. People that are having to buy SGWASA water, because we can't dig wells, so we have to use SGWASA water. That's unacceptable. And it's unacceptable for me as a businessman to have to go back to these people's houses 3, 4, 5 weeks later and say, I'm sorry that your hot water's not working. I apologize. And not even know what's causing it. I had to talk to 3 engineers at Bradford White Water Heater Manufacturing to even figure out that this is the problem. And he said, take the anode rod out, see what happens, see what it looks like. I was appalled. After 4 months, this is affecting my business. And it's also affecting me because I live on 12th Street and I drink this water. I bathe in it every day. If it does that to metal, what's it doing to me? And I need somebody. And I know none of y'all actually handle the water stuff, okay? I get that. But I need somebody to talk to me about this. and not just brush it off and say, oh, you know, it just is what it is. That's not acceptable. Not at all.
Mr. Thompson, your time is
I'll
more than
stand my case.
expired, and we would be glad to have someone from the water plant talk to you.
I'd like to talk to some of y'all after the meeting for sure, because there's more to this than what I 3 minutes sat here and said. There's a lot.
It's been about 5, so.
Well, excuse me. I'm sorry for taking up your time. But
That's no problem.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a comment
Yes.
as the executive director to the board that we have an opportunity to actually do some analysis at a home if we're notified. We have information on our website that you can fill out a very detailed survey that helps us understand what's going on at a resident or residence. And we come out and we talk to the residents about this issue and we find out what's going on. But I can tell you as I sit here today, SGWASA has not changed their water chemistry since September of last year. That has not happened. We'll be happy to follow up with this
I've
gentleman.
got 3 other plumbers that are having
We'll
the
be
same
happy to
problem.
follow up with this gentleman if he's provided us with the information, because we are just as interested as he is in what's going on. And we see this annual problem all the way around our service area. It's not common just here to 12th Street, Butner. We see it everywhere, based on age. I haven't seen one in 5 months go bad, so I'm curious as well. But just as we follow up with all of our customers, we'll be happy to do that with this gentleman or the residents. Whoever lives
the
there,
resident is the one that's the
And-
most concerned because it
and we'll-
came out of her water heater. And you all know Lynn Davis.
and we'll be
You all know.
happy to follow up with Lynn. Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you. And moving on to our next item of business, the board discussion items. I don't think we have anything for tonight, do we? Anyone bring in any discussion items? All right. Well, we'll move on to our next item of business is proclamation. Okay. This is for Public Works Week, which is May 19th through 24th, 2024. Whereas public works infrastructure, facilities, and services are of vital importance to sustainable communities and the health, safety, and well-being of the people served by the South Granville Water and Sewer Authority. And whereas these infrastructure, facilities, and services could not be provided without the dedicated efforts of public works professionals, engineers, managers, and employees from state and local government and the private sector who are responsible for and who plan, design, build, operate, and maintain the water supply, wastewater collection, water treatment, wastewater treatment, and utility facilities which are essential to serve our citizens. And whereas it is in the public interest for the citizens and civic leaders in the South Granville Water and Sewer Authority service area to gain knowledge of and to maintain an interest and understanding of the importance of public works and public utility programs in their respective communities. And whereas the year 2024 marks the 64th annual National Public Works Week sponsored by the American Public Works Association, be it now resolved that I, Granville County Commissioner Jimmy Gooch, Chair of the South Granville Water and Sewer Authority Board of Directors, do hereby proclaim May 19th through 25, 2024 as National Public Works Week. I urge all citizens to join with representatives of the American Public Works Association and government agencies in activities, events, and ceremonies designed to pay tribute to our public works and public utilities professionals, engineers, managers, and employees, and to recognize the substantial contributions they make to protecting our national health, safety, and advancing quality for life for all. In testimony whereof I have hereunto set my hand and caused to be affixed the seal of the South Granville Water and Sewer Authority this 14th day of May 2024. All right. And yes. And here's here's the proclamation to the dedicated employees of South Granville Water and Sewer Authority.
I'd like to say, Mr. Chair, thank you on behalf of all the employees of SGWASA. We greatly appreciate this proclamation this week for Public Works Week. We also appreciate the comments that the board offers to us throughout the entire year to show that they appreciate the services that we provide 24/7. So again, on behalf of all the employees, thank you very much for recognizing us, not only today for the Public Works Week, but also through the year. We greatly appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And now, item 10, our system development fee analysis, draft report for public comments. And we have our executive director and the financial services analyst with McGill & Associates, Dale Schrippers.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll take this and introduce Dale Sheepers in a moment.
Okay.
This is our system development fee analysis. This is a draft report for public comments. And one of the first things I would like to say is the board may recall that they previously approved the system development fee policy. Okay, so this is not the policy. This is not an amendment to that policy. The board has already taken care of that business. This is the system development fee analysis report. And this is an item that is required by the North Carolina General Assembly, House Bill 436, HB 436, that requires an update to the system development fee analysis to be performed at least every 5 years. So the last time that South Granville Water and Sewer Authority adopted its previous analysis was 2018, and SGWASA started addressing this requirement for this update analysis beginning in late 2023. So as we go through the background this evening, I just want to let you know that there's some information regarding the analysis. On page 15, we also have a comparison of SGWASA's current and proposed SDFs. We have a process to adopt changes to the SDFs and some recommendations. So we will step through that this evening so that the board is satisfied with the information that's presented here. Again, this evening we are not here to actually address the proposed SDFs. We are simply here to address the analysis portion that was performed by us. So at this point, I would like to just ask Mr. Dale Sheepers, the financial service analyst with McGill Associates, to come up and just provide a brief background on the draft system development fee analysis and to be able to answer any questions that you have. Once we finish that session, we'll dive a little bit deeper into the next steps as far as the process to adopt changes to the SDFs. Dale, good evening.
Thank you very much.
And I apologize for butchering your name. Sorry.
Happens all the time.
I'm from
used to that. I do thank you for allowing me to address the board this evening. My background, a little bit of my background, I was 30 years in local government, doing the job that Scott does primarily for that amount of time. And I actually started out as a treatment plant operator, so it's from kind of hands-on through management and for a 30-year career. And as I left local government, I decided that I needed to continue to do some things that are valuable, especially for utilities, municipal utilities. And I found myself in McGill Associates helping them do these types of analysis. I do rate studies, capacity analysis, and those lead to things like system development fees. So I've been around this a long time, and I'm the author, basically, of the study. So won't go into a lot of detail because I could be here all night if we did that. So I'll spare you that. But in a nutshell, the General Assembly said that system development fees will be the only methodology by which a municipal utility can recover some of the costs that it has invested in its capacity-related assets to basically get repaid for some of that investment they've made for the purpose of supporting new development. Okay, so in other words, if new development does not pay a portion of that value of that capacity, then that burden of cost is on the ratepayers alone. Okay, so this is a way to recover some of that cost in the investment that you've made already. Okay, it also allows you to collect on those capital assets that are needed in the future to support new development as well, over a 10-year planning period or longer. Okay, so there's two components to the study. One is what's called the buy-in, which is what's the value of the assets you currently own, operate, and maintain,
And then the other component is what's the value of that additional capacity you have to build to enable development to continue in the future. And you see both of those sections in the report. The other thing that I'll say is that the General Assembly also said that the fee is commensurate with that value that we calculate, and it has to be contemporaneous with the allocation of the capacity. So in other words, I can't sell you future capacity that I don't have a plan for, or I'm not investing in, or I don't already own. So it's an even trade at that point in time. So those are some of the tests that we have to have as we go through the study to make sure that it fits the law. Okay, the other thing is there has to be a rational nexus between the need for capacity and the demand for that capacity by new development. And we found those things to be true as well. So you do own capacity. We've calculated a value on that. You have future capacity that you have to build in order to maintain and continue that support of development. Excuse me. And you have available capacity that you can make that exchange on a contemporaneous basis to charge the fee and collect the fee and allocate the capacity all at the same time. All those tests need to be made and found to be favorable in order to be a valid and defensible system development fee calculation. Okay. Then, as it is implemented, the methodology is that we calculate what's called a service unit, which is, as you'll see in the report, an ERU, an equivalent residential unit. Okay, so that's a requirement of the law. Then once you've made that determination of what is an equivalent residential unit, then you have to have a method by which you apply that to all other uses besides what that ERU is equal to. And in your report and in the analysis, you'll also see that. The tables that Scott showed you earlier is that conversion between the ERU and those additional types of uses that is based on meter size. And that's a typical and common and defensible way to charge that fee. Okay, so next steps are that we have to, in order to implement this, we have to provide the study in its draft form on your website, and it has to be accessible by the public, and it also has to have a prescribed methodology for making comments. So a person can A, find it, and B, have an obvious method by which you reply and make your comments, whether that's send it to this email address or fill in the box on the website and push the send button, those sorts of things. So then after that 45-day public comment period, you are required to have a public hearing that is an opportunity for folks to come in and voice their concerns or give feedback to the board following that public comment period. Then the system development fee study then would have to be approved by the board. You accept the study, and then you can set a fee based on the study. So there's a couple of steps left to make, and it does require a 45-day public comment period, and then following that, you adopt the study, and then you can set your fees. The fees would then roll into your standard fee schedule, which I see is in your agenda handout, and you can see how those things are fitting together, proposed to fit together as you move forward to put this fee into place and into practice as you move ahead for the next 5 years. So I would entertain any questions that you might have, and I look forward to assisting as you go through the public comment period. Whatever Scott receives in public comment, I will assist him in providing explanation, responses, those sorts of things to any public comments on the methodology and calculations and so forth.
Any questions? Any comments?
Just a comment. I'm going to cover again for the board more of the analysis and the process steps and recommendations and financials. Again, I just wanted the board to have an opportunity, if they wanted to do a deep dive, to have Dale here. They could answer the questions the board may have, but if the board has no further questions regarding the actual analysis that was done, I'll ask Dale to have a seat, and then I'll just continue with the items as we move forward, if that's okay with the chair.
Any questions from anyone?
Very detailed report. It was a very detailed report.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. It's great work done by McGill Associates, and Dale is the lead on this. So, Dale, thank you. I appreciate that. Stick around in case we do have some questions, okay? Don't leave yet. And it's still raining out. So, yeah. There you go.
Quite ready to go. So, yes, thank you very much for your attention.
You're welcome.
I look forward to continuing to work with the board as we find.
Should I look to page 15? Thank you, Dale. Board members, if you'll turn to page 15 of your agenda in terms of the analysis tables that we have, and we're scrolling to that on screen at this point. As you go through the detailed report on the analysis, I thought it was important to put in front of the board here that ultimately we have a current system development fee versus a proposed based out of all of the work that was done on this. So what I provided to you is SGWASA's existing and proposed SDFs in terms of the water. And again, we determine our SDFs based on the meter size in terms of inches. So when you look at this table in front of you, you can see the meter size starting at 3/4 inch meter and then going all the way down to a 12-inch meter. And as Dale talked about, an equal residential unit, an ERU1, is equal to our 3/4 inch meter, okay? And then based on the size of your meter and the volume of water that goes through that meter, you have multipliers. So you can see a 3/4 inch meter is 1 ERU, a 1-inch size meter is 2.5, a 1.5 is 5, and so on. Now there's fees related to each one of those ERUs or those meter size, and you can see in that top table, for example, just looking at the water, moving from left to right, on the top row we have a 3/4 inch meter, it's equal to 1 ERU. We have an existing fee of $2,096. We have a proposed fee of $1,800, which is a difference of $296. Now, one might ask, well, how did you come up with that fee? And it looks to us like there's a reduction in that calculation. And all of the analysis that's supporting basically behind this item looked at all of our infrastructure, looked at the value, looked at the components, looked at what we have to build in the future as well, and went through that entire process and came up with this 1 ERU for water equaling a proposed fee of $1,800. So you will see the same information for the wastewater, which is further down the page. So you have a similar table here, which once again describes exactly what I talked about, except this is relative to the wastewater. And you can see on your top row, looking at our 3/4 inch meter size, our 1 ERU, our current fee of $34.52, you see a proposed fee of $4,574, or a difference of $1,122. I think most of the board members can appreciate all of the capital improvement work we have on the horizon, the I-85 project, additional assets that are coming into play. All that comes into calculation in terms of the capacity that we're adding, the capacity that we have at the plant, and you see that difference. So once again, in that table, you can see as far as the meter size, 3/4 inch through 12 inch, the associated ERUs, the fees, and the difference in that table. Now, just to make it a little bit easier to see, in a summary table, if you scroll down just a little bit, at the bottom of the chart on page 15, I brought together for you just a 3/4 inch meter review, both for water and sewer. So I think that you can appreciate in terms of the total that you see on the existing fee at $5,548 versus a proposed fee of $6,374, or a difference of plus $826 is where we are with that. Now, I would like to remind the board that we are not here to adopt any system development fees this evening. This was just a reference table that was born out of this report, so I at least wanted you to appreciate the analysis and what was born out of this report as far as proposed fees related to both water and sewer SDFs. So I will pause there for a moment to see if you have any questions about what we've spoken of to date on this table, and then following that, we'll move forward with the process to adopt changes to SDFs. Mr. Chair. As we ramp up for the PFAS, will we reevaluate the water? Is that, obviously the sewer, we've got a pending project, and that kind of drives. Very, very good question. So on our planning horizon and construction, we now know that we have 5 years to complete our PFAS upgrades for the water plant. That could be an expense of $10 million to $20 million to do that in the next 5 years. With the time period that we have to do this analysis within every 5 years or sooner, I would imagine it's going to fall right in line with that about 3 or 4 years from now. We'll run through these calculations again, and we will be at most likely the end of the construction of the I-85 project to see how that also possibly folds in addition to any other improvements that we will be doing over the next 5 years. So that all gets calculated, and we'll continue to review that.
So by the same token, with the water proposed fee coming down, that's based on the fact that we haven't spent as much on the water plant. We've spent money, but we spent money that we had on the water plant rather than financing.
Correct.
And we've also, the upgrades haven't been as expensive as the wastewater side. I guess we paid down the debt on the water side.
Correct. And we also factor in existing capacity. So if we already have capacity available to us and we don't have to build additional capacity, then we don't need to charge for that additional capacity that's already available to us. So it's all part of the formula, if you will, to come up with these calculations. If you'd like a deeper explanation of that, I can have Dale come up and explain that further. Would you like anything further on that?
Does anyone want anything further?
Okay.
Okay, thank you. And now, as far as action from the board, what we're looking, the executive director's recommendation is that we approve the process to adopt the changes. This isn't adopting changes. This is approving the process that we will use.
So, Mr. Chair, again, at the top of page 16 of your agenda, you can see that I've outlined a process to adopt changes to the SDFs. And this is very similar to what Dale was just talking about in terms of the following steps of posting the draft SDF analysis report on SGWASA's website for public viewing. The public comment period would begin. The posting for public comments must remain active for a minimum of 45 days. We can go a longer period of time. Item 2, following the comment period, SGWASA must schedule and hold a public hearing on the SDF analysis. Following the public hearing, SGWASA may consider adoption of the SDF analysis, and that can be done via ordinance or resolution. Most likely that will be a resolution that we'll bring to the board. Item 4, following the board's adoption of the SDF analysis, SGWASA may set the SDFs, and the SDFs must be published in the annual budget or rate plan or by ordinance. So I'd like to just speak to that for a moment. In our budget item this evening for our proposed budget, you will see there's a companion document to the budget, which is our rates and fees schedule. And within that rate, fees, and charges schedule, we actually have a list of the SDFs for our water and sewer. So as we advance this forward over the next couple of months, when we get to the point, if the board wants to change the SDFs, when they do change the SDFs, we'll go back and we'll update the rates, fees, and charges schedule in the budget book to make sure that those rates are updated as well. If the board would give us direction this evening to follow the process to adopt the changes, we can look at the week of May 20th, which would be next week, to publish the draft analysis report and start the 45-day comment period. We would close the 45-day public comment period the week of July 8th. We could hold our public hearing at the August board meeting, the regular board meeting, and consider adoption of new SDFs. Otherwise, the September 10th regular board meeting would give the board an opportunity to consider adoption of the new SDF. So as you can see, as we sit here this evening, at the middle of May, this process here can take us well into September of this year before we actually complete this. It is a long process. It's an important process. We're required to approve the analysis, and then we'll have additional steps following that.
Thank you. And we've all seen the outline of how we're going to do this, and what we need is a motion to approve the process to adopt the changes.
So moved.
We have a motion. There a second?
Second.
Have a second. Is there any discussion on the motion? If not, we'll go to the vote. All those in favor of approving the process to adopt the changes to the SGWASA, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed likewise. Ayes have it, motion carries. Our next item of business is our Gate 1 Road wastewater sewer pump station maintenance, sole source vendor pump purchase and repairs. Mr. Director, Scott, you want to handle this for us?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the Gate 1 Road wastewater pump station is located at 1543 Gate 1 Road near the intersection of Hilltop Drive in Butner. The pump station is approximately 20 years old. The pump station uses two 25 horsepower pumps to pump wastewater to a receiving manhole on West B Street. During the past several years, the wastewater pump station has experienced ongoing pump maintenance, including the rebuilding of the existing pumps. Following a recent pump failure event, SGWASA's utility team determined that the existing wastewater pumps had reached the end of their useful life, 20 years, and needed to be replaced with new pumps. Additionally, while the team was out there, the team determined that the several electrical components associated with the pump station also needed to be upgraded. So based on the diagnosis and analysis, SGWASA's utility team researched the type and brand of pumps needed to bring the wastewater pump station up to new condition. And the new pumps will allow SGWASA's utility team to install the pumps without further cost for a retrofit. And these pumps are provided by a company called Pete Duty and Associates Incorporated, located in Hillsborough, North Carolina. So Pete Duty and Associates Incorporated is a sole source vendor for SGWASA, and they have provided a cost estimate to us for the purchase and installation of the new wastewater pumps, including a new electrical control panel for the pump station. The cost for this work is $51,883. Once the new pumps and electrical components are installed in the pump station, Lewis Electric will need to come on site to provide the reinstallation of the data command SCADA components. I wanted to point out to the board that this is a component of this project, but it's not a component of this cost this evening. This cost for this work is $1,500, and this work will be expensed separately than what we're speaking of this evening. So again, the total cost associated with the pump station upgrade as provided by Pete Duty and Associates is $51,883. This expense is above my spending authority. Therefore, I'm seeking the board's approval for this expense. Additionally, I'm seeking approval of a 5% contingency for this project, bringing the total expense to $53,900.
Does anyone have any questions or comments?
I have a quick question.
Yes, sir.
So I believe you said a sole source. I'm guessing the pump is made by Pete Duty. Is that what I understand?
The Pete Duty is the sole source provider of the pump brand that we use for that.
Gotcha. That's all I need. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions, comments?
I have a question.
Yes.
Under procurement, at the end of the paragraph, it says when procuring items using the informal bidding procedure, policy requires 3 competitive quotes on vendor letterhead. Do we have that?
We didn't do that because this vendor is a sole source vendor. So if they're a sole source vendor of a certain equipment of pumps or supplier, which is normal as far as being a distribution point, then we don't do that. We actually just go to the sole source vendor that supplies us with that brand and actually make that purchase. I would also like to mention that in terms of the financials for that, our currently approved 10-year CIP includes funding for sanitary sewer lift stations and force mains. The funded amount for this item this year is $75,000. The current balance of that account is $64,472. And on the same page, 56, you can see my recommendation to the board.
So we have the money in the account for that.
Correct.
To cover that. No budget amendment required.
Correct.
But there's no other company that sells these pumps.
That's correct.
There's no other company that sells these pumps?
It's a sole source pump and vendor, which means that they are specific pumps to that pump station so that we don't have to change the configuration inside the pump station to have different pumps put in. So we have existing pumps, we're going to pull those out and put those back in. This supplier basically is the one that provides that brand of pump for this region. So that's why we're going back to that vendor for this.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? And do I hear a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the recommendation to purchase and installation of the necessary wastewater pump and electrical panel from Peak Duty and Associates.
All right, we have a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
We have a second. Is there any discussion on the motion? I don't hear any discussion, so we'll move to the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed likewise. Ayes have it, motion carries. And now, I think Mr. Richard Bauman's up to bat. We've got our fiscal year 23-24 third quarter financial review presentation by our finance director, Mr. Richard Bauman.
That's correct. Another fiscal year's about to pass by us. This is the third and last presentation of fiscal year 23-24.
Sad.
The format's very similar to the previous one, so we'll just begin with the presentation. Quarter 3, of course, covers January through March 2024. Just in summary, we'll cover revenues, fund balance, expenses by department, and then, of course, we'll cover some slides related to the I-85 project. First one is water revenue. Again, you would want revenues to be 75% or greater at this point, in the end of the third quarter. You see the budget's $5.7 million. You see the revenue is $4.5 million. We're at 79%. One thing about the water and sewer revenue that I'll hit when we pass sewer. On the sewer slide, the budget is $8.8 million. We're at $7 million. We're at 80% of budget revenues. One thing on the water and sewer. As you've been seeing, we've talked about the rate model each quarter. We've talked about it tracking right in line with revenues. So revenues were slightly above the rate model projections, and that's good. So that's where we want to be. As those 1 or 2% have added up with water, you'll see we're at 79% of water, 80% of sewer. So we're only talking about 4%, 5%. When you translate that into dollars, it can be significant. So if billing continues for the next 2 months, as it has for the prior 10 months, we're expecting a surplus in water revenue of approximately $250,000 and sewer of approximately $550,000. So you will see in June a budget amendment, probably to amend those two revenue streams by those amounts. I want to get 1 more month behind us, so I'm looking at 11 of the 12 months, so there's less chance that revenues would drop or usage would drop. Why is that tracking above revenue projection from the rate model? So we went back into the deep dive into that at this point to see, okay, what's comprising that change. The rate model, just a brief diversion from our financial presentation to help understand revenues. The rate model uses usage data from our prior fiscal year. So the rate model for the 23-24 year, that the revenue projections were from, would be from the 22-23 fiscal year. That year we have one large customer, as most of you know. It's a federal institution. Their usage can fluctuate millions to tens of millions to hundreds of millions of gallons over a year. This revenue change is primarily due to that customer. If we go back prior to 2019, you know they put in a conservation program, so we revised projections down based on what they said. That conservation program was roughly in place for 4 or 5 months prior to COVID hitting, and we saw that their projections of water sewer usage reductions were coming true. COVID hit, of course, that kind of reversed the trend. We're seeing a fluctuation in that annual usage over the last 5 years. So long story short, the rate model used a year that was unusually low for their usage. If you look at the years in front of that and behind that, they were up here, and you have one little dip. So the rate model projections used a year that was kind of abnormally low. Now, abnormally low for what we're seeing now, but it was in line with their conservation measures. So the assumption was, when we did the rate model a year ago, was that they will return to that conservation program. COVID's now over. This is going to be their new norm. But that's not true this year. They peaked back up again. So we'll monitor that. But that's kind of the main cause for the revenue. An interesting one this year. We've all been overjoyed at the changes in interest income projections. The original budget, just to remind you, budget now is $1,286,155. The original budget passed in the ordinance was $486,155. The board approved a budget amendment in March. We increased that projection by $800,000. That increase was based on news and economists saying that they expected the Federal Reserve, as you know, to drop interest rates 4 times in 2024. We're now almost to June. Both of the prior 2 reductions that were anticipated have kind of those deadlines have passed. So, long story short, we're expecting a surplus of another 170,000, 150,000 if the Feds do not reduce interest rates for May and June. So that 800,000, we may have another 170,000 additional revenue. You'll see that interest against budget is at 84%. And that's why. It's because we're seeing those rate reductions did not occur yet. Next slide. System development revenue. We've talked about that one kind of extensively in prior quarters. We know that we're not doing a lot of new taps because of capacity issues in the whole 95 project. You'll see we only to date have $13,192 in revenue. Those of you who've been on the board a while, remember there were years when we had million or more, million or 2 million. That revenue will come to you in a resolution in the July meeting, and you will earmark that for a specific project per general statute. Next slide. Fund balance. We always want to have fund balance as we get close to year end. There's 2 slides for fund balance. The first one you can see budget amendments, the original ordinance and budget amendments 1 through 4, and what they were for. Second slide, you'll see budget amendments 5 through 9, which are all the ones through March 31st. Budget number 9, EA 9 looks a little odd, of course. It shows a negative use of fund balance. That's because of that interest. So we actually boosted revenues. So total year-to-date fund balance use is $3,260,533. And I've broken down for you there how much of it is operating fund balance. So we've actually increased operating fund balance by about $500,000 due to that interest income. And then we've got about $3.7 million that doesn't move the CIP that the board has approved use of. That's the end of the revenue section. Of course, I can stop and answer any questions at any time, but we'll have a Q&A session at the end as always. Then the expense sections. You see the original budget and the amended budget. The amended budget is $948,542. You'll see spent to date is 61% of that, $576,346. One thing about that 61%, and we'll hit this probably on each slide, there's a few things that I wanted to see why at the end of the third quarter we're not closer to 75% in that department. One of the things in this department that skews that number low is that some of the professional services, legal and engineering invoices are running a little lag. So, for instance, legal and engineering, as of March 31st, we had only paid January, February, and March hadn't been paid. So that's why it's really closer to 75% is what I'm trying to say. Next slide, human resources. You'll see the budget, the amended budget is $138,810. You'll see the expenditures of $78,072, 56%. The main reason for that one being low, it appears, is the advertising and pre-employment expenses are lower than budgeted thus far for the year. Next slide, engineering. The budget for that is $410,812. You'll see we've expended $109,817, 27%. I think we all know that that's due to the vacancies of the engineering position and the engineer operations position. Next slide, billing and collections. Budgeted $502,000. $301,919. Spent to date $301,253, 60%. That one's low. We have a couple of employees that have outside medical insurance and they waive the insurance. So that's what happened there. That's why that one's kind of low. All the other line items are pretty much close to the 70 to 75% range. Next slide. The next three slides, the reason the percentage is going to be considerably lower than 75%, it's being skewed by CIP projects that are in that department. Scott and I kind of experimented with the CIP plan being kind of new this year, where we want to budget those. And until we started doing this quarter, which is the first one we've really seen the CIP projects budgeted, I didn't realize that that's one of the unintended consequences. This is going to skew some of our ratios down. So we may look at moving those to a project department so they're not skewing the true operating expenses. But the water treatment department budget is $2.1 million. You see we've expended $1,347,875. Again, that CIP cushion in that department is $50,000 that's sitting there and it's not been encumbered yet. So that's causing our 75% to be close to 62%. Next slide is wastewater treatment. That budget is nearly $2.5 million. We've expended nearly $1.4 million, 56%. Two things in there. There's a CIP project for $50,000 that's not encumbered. Also, we're seeing chemical costs thus far for the first 3 quarters actually being significantly lower than budget. So there's some chemical costs sitting there. Some of that may be absorbed as we gear up for year end and they make that transition to try to supply the plant for year end inventory. Next department, utility maintenance. Again, utility maintenance includes meter reading, water line maintenance, sewer line maintenance, and pump station maintenance, and water tower maintenance. The budget is nearly $3.4 million. We've expended $1.7 million, 51%. That one's way lower than 75 because $200,000 is sitting in CIP unencumbered. Next department. This one's an easy one. The depreciation board and other department budgeted $2.5 million. Expended $1.9 million, 74%. That's about as close as 75% as you can get with any comfort. That department is very predictable. And as we've seen in prior quarters, there are two kind of wild cards in that department. And there are P&L insurance and our workers' comp insurance. They're paid the first of every fiscal year. So in prior months, that number was too high. It was above the benchmark number. And I kept saying it's because we prepaid insurances. Now you see at the end of the third quarter, we're back down to 75%. So that'll be right on target for 99% when we finish the year. Next one is projects and studies. This one's a little bit of an outlier because, of course, projects, especially construction projects and the 95 projects, depend on a lot of variables. So it doesn't follow a nice, neat into the third quarter 75% rule. The budget is $6.9 million. This year we've expended $2.5 million, 36%. We do know that we've got a significant amount left in the I-5 project that's been already appropriated by the board, about $2 million left. And of course, there's a wastewater treatment plant chemical project the board approved. That's still incomplete, hadn't been invoiced yet for about $1 million. So that's the biggest chunk of that money is still sitting there. Next department, debt service we talk about each quarter. As we talked about in prior quarters, you'll see the budget is nearly $3.8 million for debt service alone. We're at $1.4 million, 37%. We can't get excited about that number because our largest debt service payments come in May and June. So we just paid a significant one to DEQ. We've got 2 huge ones coming due June 1st from USDA. But I assure you that will be 99.5, 99.9% by the time we hit June 30th. And that's it for the expenses. And then we'll touch briefly on the I-85 project, give you an update on where we stand with that. The CDM Smith contract is the first one, the engineering design. You see that the board's approved contract for 5.7. We know that's coming out of ARPA DEQ money. You see that we've spent 4.3. This is project to date. One note about these 2 slides versus the previous ones. These are project to date, not just current year to date. You'll see each year listed there. So project to date, we spent $4.3 million. And of course, we've gotten all of that back from market. Next slide. The board will recall they set aside roughly $1 million for legal services, easement acquisition, that sort of thing, all the related legal costs for the same I-85 project. Of that $1 million, you've seen that to date we've spent $218,896. Only 22% of that has been expended. Again, remember that invoicing there's a little lag in invoicing for this, so we've actually now caught up. There's a couple of months that are not in this number as of March 31st that now in May we pay. Next slide. Just a brief summary. Cumulative billing revenue for the year is trending slightly higher than expectations. It is materially, if you look at the percentage, it is materially comparable to budget and the rate model. But dollar-wise, it's running significantly above, as we talked about in the revenue section. Non-billing revenue, which are your fees for the year, is trending above expectations. But of course, there's not as much of a significant number attached to those percentages. The board approved a budget amendment in March 24, reducing tap fee revenue. That's basically the only revenue that's running below projections, and that's been adjusted to projected levels. Cumulative interest revenue, we just talked about, that is significantly above expectations, and the board's already done a March 24 revision, and you may see that included in the general June one as well. Fund balance appropriations are reasonable, as we saw earlier. We've actually added operating fund balance this year. That's always a good thing to see at year end. Departmental expenses overall are materially comparable to amended budget and expectations. And we talked about that the CIP is skewing those percentages down somewhat. But if you looked at a line item within the department, the other line items are moving right in line with where you want them to be. And with that, are there any questions about the data that was presented?
Any questions, comments?
Excellent job as normal.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Richard.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
just a comment.
Audience have a question?
Just a comment that the board secretary informed me that it's the internet that keeps going out. That's the interruption that we're hearing. So it goes out, it reconnects, and since we're recording on Zoom through an internet connection for this meeting, that's why it keeps interrupting. So it's not our board secretary hitting the wrong button every 5 minutes. It's actually just a technical difficulty, I think, based on the weather, based on the storms that we have this evening. So we apologize for that, but we have to keep that recording. Thank you.
Thank you. And now moving on to our next item of business is our fiscal year 2023-2024 budget amendment number 10, contractual staffing services.
This will be a fast and easy one as well. This is this budget amendment is for 23-24. It reallocates budget to allow SGWASA to contract with developmental associates to assist with the recruitment for the position of Assistant Executive Director. The Assistant Executive Director's position is replacing the currently funded yet vacant Engineering Director's position. SGWASA is also currently advertising for a Utility Engineer. The position is included in the fiscal year 24-25 proposed budget. A revised organization chart and personnel position pay plan will be presented to the board following the approval of the 24-25 budget. You'll see a table in your agenda with the prior 9 budget amendments the board's already approved, which is appropriating fund balance for $3,260,533. This budget amendment you'll see is appropriating an increase in human resources budget by $30,000 to contract with developmental associates as discussed. It's being taken $10,000 from the engineering department, $20,000 from the projects department, so it's not appropriated in the fund balance. The attachment you've got in there gives you a little more detail on the budget amendment of what line items within the department is coming from, and the executive director's recommendation is that the board of directors approve budget amendment number 10 as presented. Any questions on the budgets?
Any questions?
Were we going to reach out to LGC about applicants for this position before we entered into paying a company to do it?
I'm sorry, what's your question?
This budget amendment that's come up.
Yeah.
I don't remember approving or voting for developmental associates, saying to move forward with developmental associates. I think we had a discussion.
Well, we did have discussion and approval by the board and direction given during a closed session discussion to move forward with that item. And that was discussed again, I think most recently in a closed session, I gave the board an update on that process as well. Those estimated costs that you'd see a budget amendment coming forward for that. And that's what we have here this evening.
We've got a proven track record with that company. They've done outstanding work for us. Some companies
It is, and it's been successful in a lot of the hires throughout the area as well. The board did discuss that, and we decided to move in that direction.
Okay, so as related to this budget amendment, what's the pleasure of the board?
motion approved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the motion? Not hearing any discussion, we'll move to the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed likewise.
No.
All right. We'll go to the, it sounds like the ayes have it, but to be certain, we'll go to roll call vote.
Okay. Councilperson Daniels,
Yes.
Commissioner Way,
No.
Mayor Pro Tem Kaczynski,
No.
Commissioner Gooch,
Yes.
Commissioner Karen,
Yes.
Commissioner McLeod,
Yes.
Okay,
two.
have a 4-2. The motion carries. So we'll move on to item number 14, the proposed fiscal year 24-25 budget. We have heard the executive director's budget message. We've received the budget document. We've gone over the rate review charts, the proposed schedule of rates and fees and charges. We have review of the changes to the schedule of rate fees and charges. We have notable changes to the schedule of rate fees and charges. We have organizational charts current and proposed. We have been through the public hearing for the budget. So what is left for us tonight?
For the last couple of months, we have had extensive discussions about the budget. I believe we looked at it at every angle possible from everyone's input to how to reduce the budget or help with the rates. But I think the staff has done an excellent job coming up with the budget. And I feel comfortable in passing the budget because we did have several lengthy discussions the last couple of months. So I'll make a motion to approve it.
Okay, we have a motion to approve. Do I hear a second?
Second.
We have a second. Any discussion on the motion?
Can we request that we do a roll call vote on this?
Okay. Our vice chair's called for a roll call vote. So,
Councilperson Daniels,
Yes.
Commissioner Way,
No.
Commissioner Mayor Pro Tem Kaczynski,
No.
Commissioner Gooch,
yes.
Commissioner Karen,
Yes.
Commissioner McLeod.
Yes.
Again, we have a 4-2 vote. Motion carries. Our budget is approved. Now we have comments from the executive director.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Recording in progress.
Thank you to the board members this evening for the items that you approved for us as we continue to move forward with the organization and the goals with SGWASA. I would also like to thank our budget team, our finance director, our assistant finance director for all the work that they did, as well as the rest of the staff that helped us put this budget together this evening. We will move forward on the schedules of the projects that were approved this evening and report back to the board with updates along the way.
So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Do we have any comments from our attorney?
None for the board, but I would like to just address Ms. Rogers' public comment. If you could hang around, I'd be happy to get your contact information and provide that to our Eastman acquisition team and make sure someone gets in touch with you.
Recording in progress.
If you don't mind, I'd be happy to get just name and phone number, but no comments otherwise.
Okay. Yeah, and comments from our board members. Councilperson Daniels.
I want to thank everyone for coming out tonight. It's very important. I think that you come to the meetings. Being online is just as important, but I think you get a lot of interaction between the board members. You understand, get a feeling of appreciation of how well our staff has worked very hard to come up with the agenda items. And it's sometimes they're complex and complicated. And I appreciate all the effort and time that they take place to bring the agenda items to us. And I want to thank all the board members for working together and expressing our views independently and working together to come to a conclusion.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Way.
Just to reiterate, thank you to the staff. Thank you, Richard, and the financial team for everything that you guys do. Thank you, Director Schroyer, and the staff in the field for what you guys do. McGill and Associates did a great job with this draft report. We appreciate it. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner McLean.
No comments.
Commissioner Karen.
At the top of this meeting, we did have the Public Works week. We are appreciative of the folks that are out there in the hot and the cold, fixing water lines as they come up. And we would be sunk without water and sewer in this area, and all of the efforts within this team are greatly appreciated.
Sunk. That was appropriate.
Thank you, Commissioner Karen. Mayor Pro Tem Kaczynski.
I want to thank our HR, our finance people, our utility workers, executive director, and these board members. We have taken some criticism on social media for the rate increase that we have. And we have done everything that we can do and asked a million different varieties of questions to avoid this rate increase. I personally came under some specific criticism for trying to find a way to avoid the rate increase. I am asking that any citizen who's got a better idea to avoid a rate increase to please let SGWASA know your idea, and we will consider it any way we can. We have stated that it was an emotional decision for this budget. I voted against it because I hate to see the citizens of Creedmoor have a rate increase, but there is no other way. I want to thank Richard and Scott and the assistant finance director. They were ready and willing with all the questions that we had. Can we do it this way? Can we do it that way? Can we try it this way? You guys had done all the research and you had all the answers for us when we asked. And I appreciate that very much because we depend on HR and our utility people and our finance people to get through these meetings. Budget time is a horrible time of year for everybody. And I think that we worked as hard as we have. I've never worked this hard on a budget before, and I'm on the finance committee, and we've tried everything we could do.
Recording in progress.
It's a rough year for everybody. Inflation is hitting all of us, and it's hitting everyone from many, many angles. And I want you all to remember that it is hitting us also. We live in Granville County. We live in the municipalities we serve. We are all affected by this. I am a SGWASA customer. I'm going to have to pay the higher rate. I don't want to, but I have to. So just know that it is not without a lot of trials and tribulations that we make these decisions. But there is an election coming up in a couple years, and you're more than welcome to step into our shoes. And I mean, if you can absolutely believe you can do a better job, I welcome you. I absolutely do. That's all I have.
Thank you. It's especially tough this year with the budget. It's especially tough this year with every budget with the municipalities as well as the county. We're still wrestling and wrangling with the budget at the county. When you have revenues that are flat and you have increased expenses, you have to cover those increased expenses. And we've all felt the expenses everywhere, not just with your water bill. You've experienced it with the electric bill. You've experienced it at the grocery store. You've experienced it at the gas pump. And what we face here is increased expenses at the gas pump, increased expenses with chemicals. Our labor costs have gone up because we have been behind on the money for our employees. We've been behind on 401k programs and other benefits for our employees. And quite honestly, we've lost some pretty good people to surrounding counties and municipalities due to the benefits being better and the pay being better. And, you can't blame anybody leaving for better pay, better benefits.
Recording in progress.
So this has been a tough year, and hopefully with the completion of the I-85 project, which is several years out, that we'll see better times. And before I get rambling too far, appreciate everyone that's come out tonight. Appreciate you staying around to the end of the meeting. We'll be glad to talk with each and every one of you after the meeting. And thank you. And that concludes my comments. Is there any other business to come before the board? Do we have do we have anything for a closed session? No, nothing for a closed session. Thank you. Well, good. In that case,
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. Thank you, Mr. Commissioner Way.
Second.
And we have a second by Councilperson Daniels. Is there any discussion on the motion? If not, we'll go to the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed likewise. Ayes have it. Motion carries. We're adjourned. End of the meeting.